Welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. This podcast is all about helping moms to take care of themselves so they can take better care of everyone else. This episode is sponsored by my book, Parenting with Purpose. If you really want to grow as a parent, definitely check this book out. You can get all the details at momswhoknowpodcast.com. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined today by Sarah Wolfgramm. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the call.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of your podcast today.
Yeah, you guys, you are in for a real treat with Sarah today. I've heard from her a few times. I've gotten to hear her speak, and she is just an amazing mother, just has so much wisdom. And today we're going to talk about all things motherhood. Now, I want to tell you a little about Sarah so you know how awesome she is and know some of her experience. So to start off with, let me tell you a little about her. She is a musician. She worked as a professional singer. She started singing professionally with her cousins in a music group called Blush. That was when you were a teenager. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then they started working with a family band called the Jets. And that's where she met her husband, Heine, who is a bass player. They fell in love, got married, and they knew that they wanted to have a big family. But as she says, she didn't know exactly how many she planned on and ended up with 14 children. 14. So it's amazing to me. I'm so excited to get into some of the details of what life is like with 14 kids. Her kids are also musical, having musically talented parents. They have passed that on to them, and they have, let's see, it says the oldest 7 of your kids are in a band called 13 Crowns and are releasing their first album and their first single on the radio. So that's exciting. They also, as a family, have a catering business, and Sarah bakes and decorates wedding cakes and arranges flowers for weddings. And you are amazing. So,
it's crazy. It's survival of the fittest, I guess.
I guess so. And you did not mention in your bio, you also recently won an award for California Mother of the Year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a nice honor to have. It wasn't something we submitted or won. They just named me Mother of the Year, I guess. So it's not like there's a competition or some contest that you join. You just get selected and nominated, and somebody nominated me, and they went through the vetting process with the other nominees. And I was selected to represent California, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. I'm excited for the year that's to come.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think we have a good representative in you, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, now to start off, I want to go through a list of questions because as I was thinking of talking to you in this conversation, we're going to get deep into some of your experiences and deep into the motherhood part because I think you have a lot to teach us there. But first, I want to go through a few just quick questions that I have and that I bet some of my listeners are wondering as well. So my first question is, what kind of a car do you guys drive with such a big family?
Well, at this point, it's not a car, it's many cars. We have 7 total, and that's just out of necessity. We have a 15-passenger for when we do go places all together. At once. And then we've got a couple small teenage cars, little Toyota Camry, and, really old one we just paid, I think, $1,200 cash for, so that if there's fender benders or anything like that, no worries. And then we have a cargo work van that's for our catering company. We've got a work truck and 2 other just commuter cars that run around. Oh, we do have a Suburban. That's kind of like me and the little kids running around. It's funny because I almost have 2 families. I have my older kids, and then there's my, I call it round 2 with all the little ones. Because I most moms aren't in the diaper phase for 20 years, like I've been. And usually they're in it for a few years and then they're done. But mine's been continuous. And anyway, so we've got car seats and everything in the Suburban.
Okay, that makes sense that you would need, a variety of cars to go out and choose from the lot of which one you're going to drive.
That's right. And you know what? It's funny. Rarely do we ever all go somewhere the same time. Used to be church, but now my older kids go to, a church for the single adults in the area. And then sometimes we go to the beach, which we all go together in the 15-passenger van, so we don't have to pay for parking. But for the most part, everybody kind of comes and goes different places at different times. So, we've got what we need. And yes, registration and smog checks and, maintenance and oil changes and tires, all of that is a big headache. But I guess it's just goes with the territory of having a big family.
Yes. Okay. Next question. How do you keep the laundry straight? Like, I'm thinking socks. I can barely do it with my 5. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh. Socks are disposable. I've just come to terms with that. Like, mating socks will be the death of me. So I just opted to we don't do it. And for the most part, I've realized my kids don't wear a ton of socks. Now, let me give a disclaimer. We do homeschool, and I do that mostly because to keep my sanity, and otherwise I'd be driving around all day long, dropping off, picking up, volunteering in classes. Might as well just do it all together all at once. And so we don't, my kids, if we go places, a lot of times they're wearing sandals or flip-flops. So socks are kind of a Sunday thing. And if my older kids that, go to the gym and work out and exercise, they've all got socks and stuff. But laundry, seriously, used to be my nemesis. I actually came up with like a design for disposable clothes, like paper plates. And we only use paper plates and disposables because it would just be crazy the amount of dishes that we do. And so I buy in bulk, a box of 1,000 plastic forks, 1,000 plastic spoons, and we go through a ton of paper plates and stuff. And so I thought of the same thing with laundry. And then after I, put the whole thing together, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Because my son had a Halloween costume I bought him at the dollar store years ago. It was a little policeman uniform. And it's made out of this real thin fabric, but he wore it for like 4 or 5 days straight. And then it started to tear in the knees. And I was like, okay, throw this away. I paid $1 for this. This was the best investment I've ever had. I don't have to wash it. So after I had come up with this idea for disposable clothes, and you can put cute designs and you can do all kinds of things, you wear them once or twice and then you just throw them away. And, then I realized nobody else cares that much about their laundry being disposable but me, because I'm the only one that's crazy enough to require such, demands when it comes to laundry. But I'll say this much. I used to just, say laundry will always win. It's an endless battle that I will never get ahead of. And it's okay. I just relinquished it and said, it's okay if my laundry is knee deep in the laundry room of piles of clothes and baskets that are overflowing and kids searching for things. So then the baskets get dumped out. But I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel because I've got, 3 or 4 older teenage daughters that one of them just loves doing the laundry. And so she's constantly running my washer and dryer like it should be. And I'm seeing my floor in the laundry room for the first time in years, because she's just, taking it on. And so I'm reaping the rewards now of having older children who care. They get it. So, that's been a huge blessing. But before that, I just would have to say, okay, do the kids have something to wear today that's clean? I can't sweat the rest. It's not all going to be clean all at the same time. And if it is, it'll be 5 minutes before it's all dirty again.
Yes. I love it. Okay. That just, yes, even, with not quite as many kids, I hear you. The clothes sometimes just go from like, they don't ever make it to the drawers. I don't even know why we have drawers,
For a long time in my laundry room, I just had shelves. Everyone had a shelf, and I would do the laundry and I would turn around and fold it, put it on their shelf, and everybody's clothes was just in the laundry room on the shelf. Well, I don't have a huge laundry room. I wished I did. And if I did, but it got to the point where everything was falling off the shelf and ending up on the floor. And so my fight to do that. So it was either in the rooms and drawers on the floors or in the laundry room on the floors. Either way, it was on the floor. So I finally just, moved things to kids' rooms back in on shelves in their room. But like I said, laundry is low on my list of important things to get done in a day.
Yes. Good. As it should be. As it should be. Okay. And you answered one of my other questions, which was, do you use real plates or paper plates? Paper plates for the win. Love it. Now, how many bedrooms in your house?
Well, we have 4 bedrooms in our house, but we converted our 3rd car garage. We finished it with, an actual closet, and it's an actual room with carpeting and walls and a ceiling fan and window. So we have a finished room in our garage that my older son lives in. And then in the house, we've just got rooms with bunk beds. There's the older girl's room, the younger girl's room, and the boys' room. And then my son's in his garage, and mine and my husband's room that we have a baby in our room with us. And everybody just moves over, and it's not uncommon for kids to spread out blankets on the floor in the family room and fall asleep watching a movie and being all together. That's just, my husband's Polynesian, he's Tongan, and in their culture, they aren't raised with everybody getting their own room with their own bed. They sleep on mats on the floor, and that's perfectly normal and fine in their islands. And so I think being raised that way, he's kind of brought that to my kids, and it's actually we call it the big special bed, and everybody has a big slumber party, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I grew up in a big family. Now, you are one of 9 kids. I grew up as one of 8 kids. And there was a time we grew up in a 3-bedroom house. I don't think I've ever shared that on the show. And so just what you described, bunk beds in the room. My parents, they would have the baby in there, and, it just works out, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So, okay. I just thought that was a question that would come up, though. People wonder, oh, well, do you have this, sprawling mansion where everyone has their room kind of thing? And no,
absolutely not. No, everybody expects that because you have a big family, you have a big house, and it would be lovely. One day we will, but we live within our means, and we do what we can do. And my house is strictly utility. It's functional for us. The toilets flush, the water runs, the heater and air conditioning works. Everything else is cake. That's icing on the cake. Yes. So
now, one quick question about the water. Do you ever run out of hot water? And how do you, just showers with that many people? How do you guys handle that?
You know what? I don't think we've ever run out of hot water. Everybody just kind of knows. Nobody waits till Sunday morning to all jump in the shower before church. People the little kids will bathe Saturday night. Some of the teenagers will get their shower out of the way earlier. And then, I can't remember a time when we've ever run out of hot water. I think everybody just kind of paces it, as such. And lately I've got a son who's 15. He turned 16 on Monday, believe it or not. And we live in a homeowners association that has a pool. And in this pool is a shower. And he has been running up to the pool shower. Well, he says, I do a polar dip, Mom. I jump in the pool, I swim back and forth, and then I jump over into the shower and shower there, so I don't have to wait for the shower. I'm like, you are a smart kid.
He is a smart kid. I love it. Survival skills that you learn in a big family.
Amen.
Okay,
right.
One last of these little quick questions I wanted to go through, and that is this. What people say, what's the most common thing you hear when you tell them how many kids you have?
Oh my goodness. I could give you a list. Don't you have a TV? Don't you know what causes that? Haven't you ever, all of these questions, are those all your children when I have 4 of them? And I say, yes, they are. And this isn't all of them. There's plenty more at home, but I've always, because I grew up in a big family, and I had, my aunt shares a story when she was at the grocery store with 5 of her small children, and some derogatory comments that were made to her. Don't you know you're overpopulating the world and whatnot. So I always went into this knowing that that's what people would think if I gave them the inclination that I hadn't wanted this and done this. And so when people ever ask or anything, yes, they're all my children. Yes, I wanted them all. And yes, they're a blessing. And no, I'm not done. I'm raising children who are going to contribute to this world and be upstanding citizens in society. And you're going to be thankful for the children that I'm putting in the world. And their automatic response is, wow, I admire you. That is amazing. I've never gotten somebody, because I always interject a statement before I know they're even thinking that or going there. I always let them know that I come from a big family. So does my husband. We both wanted a lot of kids. This is what we chose to do, and we love it. And there's nothing they can say. They're just like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, good for you. That's a great way to just kind of nip it in the bud, get it out there.
And people feed off of our attitude. If I'm traipsing my kids through the grocery store, huffing and puffing and mad and frustrating and yanking them and calling them to come over, my frustration is going to add to their frustration. But the more happy I appear and the more I seem to enjoy this, people admire it, and they go, wow, you're doing a great job. When really, I say the perfectest hostess is like a duck. calm and serene on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath. Really, I might be paddling like hell underneath to be biting my tongue or not wondering, but I know that I'm constantly on display and being watched and being observed. And so my attitude is going to affect the way people feel about the kind of mother I am.
Yes, so true. So true. That leads me into something I want to talk about, which is how do you personally get through? So a lot of times as moms, we feel like, we're busy, we're tired, we're drowning almost. How do you keep yourself in that place where you're able to come across, serene and happy? It's more than just an act or a show. It's who you
Yeah,
are. And how do you get there?
it's true. I think when it comes to I have to look back at the way I was raised. My mom was the fun mom. She was the happy-go-lucky mom. If it was a choice between doing chores and going to the beach, we were at the beach, hands down. Like, yes, there's no question about it. My mom, if there wanted to be a slumber party with all the cousins, come to Aunt Lene's house. My mom was the one that didn't care whether there was dishes piled in the sink. Sure, let's go to the movie. And so for a long time when I was a young mom and first being a mom and I noticed this, I came to this realization. I became cognizant of the fact that my mom she was too laid back. She didn't have a clean kept house because she was, more concerned about going to the park with everybody and having fun and going to the next party with everybody. And now that I'm in this position where I have more kids and I'm wise, I see how I've gleaned from her and it has worn off on me because I don't get stressed and uptight and angry when there's fingerprints on my walls and when my kids have kicked their shoes in the middle of the floor. They're going to get picked up. Is it really worth me losing my temper over it? I don't think so. I think also going through some really hard things in life, like my younger sister having a brain tumor or my 12th daughter dying of SIDS, those are the real things that you stress over. When everybody is doing fine and they're all breathing, we're good. You know what? If everybody is breathing today, we're good. There's nothing worth stressing over. And I think sometimes, as a young mom, I might have found things to stress over that just aren't worth stressing over. Life teaches you that kind of wisdom, whether you want to have those lessons or not. Unfortunately, you do learn them the hard way by having to go through the trials.
Yeah, yeah. But like you said, you come out on the other side, like really understanding what's important and what matters. I want
Yeah,
to talk a little bit about your daughter and about losing her. Whatever you're willing to share about that experience, we would love to hear a little bit about
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that there are other parents who deal with grief and death differently. But this is my experience and the way I have chosen to go about it. And my philosophy has been I can either talk about it with you now or I'll talk about it in 20 years to a therapist because I chose not to share. But my experience, my beautiful daughter she was number 12 in our family. This is 3 years ago. Her name was Soraya, and she was our beautiful, happy, healthy little girl. She was kind of the apple of everyone's eye. They were all smitten with her. It wasn't just mom and dad who adore our children. Now you've got 11 older siblings who she's the crowning baby of the family who's just everybody is so smitten with her. And one night when I was busy working on wedding cakes downstairs in my kitchen, my husband was holding her upstairs, waiting for me to finish a layer of cake so I could take a break and feed her and nurse her to sleep. So he was upstairs in my room watching a football game, and it was halftime. And he came downstairs for a little bit. Oh, she had fallen asleep in his arms. And so I was surprised that she wasn't crying and ready to eat because she had been long overdue for her next feeding. And she was 3 months old, so just barely phasing out of newborn, still kind of newborn. And he laid her on our bed and came downstairs and we did a few things. He grabbed a snack and then we said our evening family prayer and he went back upstairs. And all of a sudden I just heard him yelling, and I heard it in his voice, something's terribly wrong. So I dropped everything and went running to my staircase, and he was coming down with the baby and handed her to me and said, she's not breathing. And I looked in her face and I could see that she was gone. And it was almost like this mother's intuition right out of my mouth. The first thing I said was, "This is SIDS. There is no reason she should stop. She should have stopped breathing. This is SIDS." And so I just sprung into action. I started doing compressions on her chest as my kids just kind of came flocking downstairs to see what the matter was. One of my daughters picked up the phone to call 911, and we gathered to kneel in prayer in our living room, and we just began to pray and pray. And my husband ministered to her and gave her a blessing. All the while she wasn't breathing. She was still warm and pliable, but I could tell she was lifeless. And finally, the 911 operator wanted to talk to me on the phone, so I jumped up to talk to her on the phone. And all the while I'm still doing chest compressions, holding her in my arms, and trying to get her to respond. And as I'm talking to the 911 operator, the first responder was a sheriff. He was close by, so he came in and he took her from me. And then the ambulance and everybody came in. They were working on her, and then they ended up taking her to the hospital because they felt like they could resuscitate her because she was still somewhat warm and whatnot. My experience with other SIDS cases is that they've passed away in their sleep, and then there's just no sense in trying to revive. Well, in our case, she was still somewhat close. How do I say it? She wasn't stiff yet or anything like that. So they took her to the hospital, and at the hospital, they let us know that they were going to give her a time of death. And it was very, very hard for our family. It wiped my kids out almost as much as it did myself. And a few days into our, the post-death process, as you're having to plan a funeral and plan burying your baby, which nobody ever thinks about or wants to think about. My kids said, "Mom, please don't let this be the way our family's story ends. Don't let this be the last chapter." And I agreed. I thought, I don't want this to be the last thing I remember of having a baby, and then it's just taken away from us like this. And so my husband and I both made the decision that if the Heavenly Father would send us another baby, we would have another one right away. And I did. I got pregnant within a few weeks, and very shortly, 9 months after that. So it was just under a year that we had our rainbow baby, number 13. Her name is Lene, and man, she just took that hole in our hearts and filled it right up. Obviously the pain and the grief is still there. We still mourn the loss of Soraya, but our energy and our pain is able to be focused on the love of this new baby. And she was, such a miracle and blessing. And then number 14 came along as a complete surprise 2 years after. So she's 4 months old now. And so we have my husband, on the way to the hospital, as I was in labor with number 14, he said, "What's better than a rainbow baby?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "2 rainbow babies." I said, "You're absolutely right." I think in life we have to go through hard things. It's just part of mortality. And whether it's a divorce, the pain of a divorce, or the pain of a disease, a chronic illness, the pain of cancer, the pain of the sting of losing your parents at a young age, or in my case, losing your child. I think we go through these things for reasons that we don't know and understand, but in the eternal perspective, we learn things that we wouldn't otherwise have learned. And what I've learned is that we just have to trust in Heavenly Father's plan for each one of us and for our families. And there will be hope, and it may be a lot of pain and suffering in this life, but in the hereafter, I know that what we learned and what we gained will all come to light, and there will be complete understanding, and there is purpose for everything that we go through.
That's so beautiful. I really appreciate you just, sharing that experience with us. I remember when I first heard you speak, you had just had your sweet little Soraya, and I was able to meet her. And then it wasn't too long after that I saw these pictures. There were some beautiful pictures taken, and I don't remember who shared those, but someone had shared those on Facebook. And just seeing these pictures of your family saying, goodbye to her was so touching. And you sharing that was so touching. Is there anything you would share with people of, how obviously you've relied on your faith to get through? Anything else you would say to people who are struggling with losing a baby or any other hard times, that ways that you've gotten through?
Yeah, I think for me, I just got a little emotional as I realized that you're right. I remember the first time I met you, I was right after I had Soraya. I was up at Camp
Yeah.
Hinkley, and I
Yeah.
came and spoke to your group of women, and she did pass away very shortly after that. And so consider yourself one of the lucky ones who got to meet her,
Yes. Yes,
because
I
her life was
do.
really short. Anyways, one of the things I've learned when it comes to dealing with grief is you learn to compartmentalize, so that you can function. And one of the things somebody else who had lost a child, a baby at a young age, had said to me in the very beginning, right after she passed away, they said, and it was he was a man, so of course said it so almost insensitive sounding, but he said, "Yeah, the only way I get through it is just don't think about it. Just don't think about it, and then you'll be able to function." And I was like, "You're asking me not to think about my beautiful baby?" And no way, she's going to be on my mind every minute of every hour of every day that I ever live for the rest of my life. And that is true. But I think that in order for us to jump back into life and to function, and it takes a little bit of time. Obviously, I'm not saying right away. You have to grieve, and you have to allow yourself time. But you get to the point where you take all of those emotions that are related to the loss, and you can put it in like I put it in an imaginary box, and I set it on the shelf. And then, every so often, and at first it was every day, I'd open that box, I'd visit it, I'd allow myself to cry, I would allow myself to grieve. But then, okay, it's time to move forward because my kids need me, or because I have to function, I have to get something done. Then I put it back in the box, and I put it back on the shelf. And it's gone from doing it every day to once a week now, or, even as you further go, then you visit those places, and sometimes it just hits you out of the blue. You're not prepared for it, and something can trigger an emotion, and there you are, just a balling mess of emotions. But I found, like, you can't be that way all the time. People look at you differently, and they don't know what to say. They don't know how to react. When I would run into friends, I can tell and I can sense that it's very awkward for them because they don't know what to say to me. So it's up to me to let them know that I'm okay. I'm actually doing okay. And how do I do that? Is just by functioning back as trying to be myself again, and allowing them to see that, okay, she's actually all right. When really inside, sometimes I just feel like crumbling onto the floor into a sobbing mess. And that's my next bit of advice. Sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you have to just crumble to the floor and sob into a pillow and cry and cry and cry until you feel like you've gotten it all out, and you take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm ready to get back on my feet again, and I can do this thing called life, and everything's going to be okay. And then last of all, I want to just share that it's really important for us to reach out and lean on those who are in our lives. And for me, it's my spouse, it's my husband. And I know not everybody has that opportunity, but if it's your children, or if it's your mother, or if it's a best friend, realize that people do want to be there for you. They just don't know when it's appropriate to step into your circle of privacy, or when they're intruding. But if you reach out and let them know, or I found I have a few friends that have gone through the similar thing, and one of them, all I have to do is text her one word, and she knows, and she'll send me something, she'll call me, she'll, so we kind of have this code language of my support system, but mostly it's my husband. He knows, and I know if he gives me a look and I see his eyes watering, I know exactly. We reach out, we hold hands, and then we just start to talk it out. And those would be the things that I recommend to anybody that's dealing with a loss.
I love that. Oh, that's so good. There's so much more I want to talk to you about that. I think that we're going to have you on again, because we have only scratched the surface. But in the little time we have left, yeah, I want to hear just really quickly, with all the kids, I'm sure, like you said, it's easier now because you have built-in babysitters. But how have you and Heine kept your relationship strong? I know that can be hard as you're juggling, all these things. What are some
Yeah.
things you guys do to stay strong in your marriage?
We are very blessed that because we're entrepreneurs and we run our business together, we're together most of the time. We don't have that the typical relationship where he leaves and goes to work and I'm home and then he comes home and then we have a little bit of time together. We fortunately spend a lot of time together during the days, and even when our kids were younger. He did have, a few jobs and different careers. At one point, he worked for an airline, and he would be gone from, 9 in the morning till 5 or 6 at night. And but we have always enjoyed our date nights and made them a priority. And you have to make time for your relationship and find the things that connect the two of you. If he has things that he does in his personal life that you're not interested, like my husband loves to watch basketball, I just can't even be bothered with it. I'm too busy. So if he's watching basketball, I give him that. And when I need to watch something that I like, he gives me that. And then we find things that we like to do together. That's the important thing. Give him his space and he gives me my space, but we have our things that we love to do together. And, our kids, of course, they are the thing that bind us together the most. But, when the kids grow up and leave, what are he and I left with if we haven't taken time to foster that and make sure that it's a priority? Because if all we're doing is focusing everything on the kids and his work, then that does come to an end. They do grow up fast. And when they're grown and gone, if he and I don't have anything in common, we don't like each other, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So.
Yes, so true. It's so good. It's so important to spend that time. I love those ideas to make time, give him his time, you have your time, but have that time together also.
Yeah.
So good. I just love, your family and your whole just light. You're just full of light and happiness and just have like this wisdom, like you said, gained of experience. But I think it's wonderful that you've been able to share that with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yes. And thanks everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. I am so grateful to Sarah for being on the call and for being so willing to open up. If you love this episode as much as I did, be sure to share it. And for show notes, visit momswhoknowpodcast.com.